Hi. So today we are going to discuss on this very important topic, a overview on regulations and guidelines in the perspective of clinical research in India, and also we will discuss roles and responsibilities of key stakeholders in clinical trial. So when we are talking about regulations and guidelines, then I'm just taking one example. We all know that different bodies told us to wear mask because mask can prevent COVID-19 infection. So different professional scientific bodies recommend us to wear mask, and that is the guideline. Guidelines are not guidelines, but guidelines are those which are good to follow. But if there is some rule that when I am going outside, if I am not wearing mask, then I have to give fine. So that is regulation. Regulations are those which we must follow. So this is the basic difference between regulations and guidelines. And in this picture, in this slide, we can see the picture of CDSCO. This is our regulatory body. The DCGI, Drug Controller General of India, is the supreme of this body, but they are regulating guidelines, not guidelines, regulating acts. We will discuss about those regulations. And who is ICMR? ICMR is a scientific body. They are preparing different guidelines to have our research smoothly. These are few key documents when we are doing clinical research in India. And initially, long back 1940s, we have Drugs and Cosmetic Acts and Drugs and Cosmetics Rules. So this is the first regulation, we must say. 2005 was a landmark year in terms of regulations in clinical research, and we got Schedule Y amendment, and it helped to perform clinical trials in India. And if we go on 2001, that was the first time CDSCO came with one guideline, and that is the Indian Good Clinical Practice Guideline. Again, a revolutionary year. In 2000, ICMR first time came up with the ethical guidelines for doing the clinical research, and which was revised in 2006, and we got the updated version on 2017. So guidelines for stem cell research and therapy, that was also prepared by ICMR with Department of Biotechnology, first time in 2007. Then it was revised on 2013. And very recently, in 2017, we are privileged to have national guidelines for stem cell research by ICMR. So this is the guideline which we were discussing, the National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research involved in human participants. So this book is easily downloadable from net. I think we all should download it and read it thoroughly again and again, specifically when we are going to start one clinical research. So this is one type of guideline which can help us during our different clinical projects. There are few key areas where it was updated from the 2000 versions. Which are those? Specifically, the public health research domain, social and behavioral science research domain were updated. Apart from that, we should appreciate their first-sightedness, because at the time 2017, they had prepared one separate section on research during humanitarian emergencies and disasters. And now we can appreciate that during this COVID-19 time, we got immense help from these areas which was mentioned in the guideline. Apart from that, there were a few other specialized areas like informed consent process, biological materials, biobanking, different type of dataset management, and also they had given emphasis regarding that vulnerability chapter, which is very important for ethical clinical research. And as we are in this COVID-19 era, this is a very important statement, and we must confess that many research, specifically the non-COVID research, had suffered due to this COVIDization. But again, we should appreciate the effort of ICMR, because they had also prepared one guideline very quickly. You can see April 2020. They had came up with this guideline on reviewing biomedical and health research for ethics committees. How ethics committee can act during COVID-19 pandemic. So this is one case study of drug A versus drug B in mild COVID-19 patient. So the question arises, as the patient will be treated from telemedicine platform, how we can take the consent. So there is a provision of e-consent or electronic consent, and also there are different provisions. If I am taking the informed consent process in my hospital setup, we can prepare a video or some podcast before explaining the research, explaining the ethical area of that particular clinical research, and can distribute to the potential participants, so that can prime those participants, and there should be a minimal contact between the participants, research participants, and the investigator team. So these are the modifications that was suggested by this guideline. Apart from that, they had also mentioned, if I am seeing these patients telemedicine, so how they can sign. So there is a provision of signing in the electronic informed consent document via electronic signature, but that should be authorized, or the permission should be taken from the ethics committee. So this is very remarkable. Another important issue, we can see a trial of vaccine X was ongoing. In that particular trial, the exclusion criteria was COVID-19 RT-PCR positiveness. So if a patient found to be positive, he will be excluded from the study. So it was done at the screening phase, So as screening become positive, that means COVID positive, the patient will be not included in the study. ICD will be not administered. So informed consent process will be not done. So what happened? Mr. SS at screening found to be positive. Now IC not done. The investigator team referred Mr. S to COVID-19 hospital. So what happened? After 1 month, Miss S, who is the daughter of Mr. SS, sent a letter to director of that particular hospital, accusing hospital for death of her father and mother. Now the director asked EC member secretary to react and talk with the investigators also. So what is the problem that happened here? When Mr. SS was found to be positive, he was referred to COVID-19 hospital, but you know, there was lots of stigmatization with COVID-19 infection. So as initially Mr. SS does not have any symptoms much, asymptomatic initially. So he refused to go to the COVID-19 hospital, and also he had suppressed his report. Now at 10th day, he felt shortness of breath and then visited hospital. It was found that saturation was 25 or 30%, immediately admitted. And then after a few days, patient was died. What happened? The patient's wife, also, she was a diabetic lady, obese, hypertensive lady. We all know the high transmissibility of COVID-19 infection, and wife also infected with COVID-19, and subsequently she also died. Now the question is, if the responsibility of the PI is only to refer that particular patient to COVID-19 hospital, is it everything? Or PI should act more reactively or proactively to have some telephonic call with this particular patient, Mr. SS, and ensure whether he is taking COVID-19 appropriate therapeutics or not, or following treatment protocol or not. So this is the question of ethics. This may be not written in the rules or regulation, but this is the inner consciousness, and that is why there is a big question on the investigator and research team, and this is why we need to be very cautious, specifically while we are doing research with COVID-19 patients or doing research with some vulnerable populations. So as we are talking about vulnerability, COVID-19 infected patients become vulnerable by getting the SARS-CoV-2 in their system. So this is very important to note. Now, when we are talking about regulation in India while doing clinical trial means the regulatory clinical trials, the new drugs and clinical trial rules to 2019, we should all know thoroughly. what happened in the situations of clinical trials in India? There was a data in 2002, 2003, that time, 2.3, only 2.3% share of the global clinical trial activities were happening in India. So who are the clinical trial, we can say, who are the who want to do clinical trials in India? They have panic like that. We in India, we have so much population, but so less clinical trials happening here. So there are different aspects to see this also, because any type of research needs money, and for that you will see in those countries whose GDP is more, they are doing more clinical research. It is not like you will see clinical research as number of patient population is high. So African countries are leading in clinical research, or any South Asian countries are leading in clinical research. Though the number is less, the America is leading the clinical trials number. So it is directly proportional to the GDP of that country. So what happened, apart from those GDP issue, the clinical trial rules are also not very much clear cut in India. So after Schedule Y amendment happened in 2005, from 2011 to 2018, there are lots of amendments happening in that particular Schedule Y. And now we can see the process, the rise in clinical trial number in India. And 2019, after this new drug clinical trial rule, you can see we reached the peak, 11%. Though due to this COVID-19 pandemic, it is all over the world situation is like that. There is a drop, but still it is high, quite high, 8.3%. So we should appreciate our CDSCO because of their revolutionary steps, regulations, amendments. We are having this smooth process to have more and more clinical trials. Another important issue is that here I just want to mention, many of us still believe Schedule Y persists, but for clinical research, there is no Schedule Y. Schedule Y is totally replaced by this new rule, new drug clinical trial rule 2019. This we all should remember. Schedule Y is there only for veterinary use. So no Schedule Y for clinical research. This should be one take-home message from today. So it is only new drug clinical trial rule. Another important shift that happened in India, there is more and more non-industry sponsored trials happening. So this is also a very good sign. Obviously, if we see the therapeutic area, for last 1 year, it is all about COVID-19, and we can see the jump of infectious disease related clinical trials here. As we are talking repeatedly, clinical trial, so it is important to understand clinical trial a little bit. And for that, this algorithm is very much helpful. First question we should ask to understand whether it is clinical trial or not. That is, did investigator assign exposures. If I am investigator, then if I am assigning the exposure, I am assigning which group will take which type of drug. If it is yes, then it is an experimental study. If I am not assigning exposure, someone else assigning exposure, I am just observing, then it is observational study. Is it clear? So if investigator assigning exposures, then it is experimental study. And if this allocation is random, then it is randomized control trial. If it is not, then non-randomized control trial. And in case of investigator not assigning exposure, not assigning that which group will take which therapeutics, then someone else is deciding, investigator is just observing, then that is an observational study. And for observational study, we need to see if there is a comparison group. If we are comparing, then it is analytical study. If we are not comparing, then that is a descriptive study. So in case of analytical study, we need to understand the direction. Direction means if we are starting from exposure and going to outcome, then it is a cohort study. If we are starting from outcome and going back to exposure, then it is a case control study. And when the exposure and outcome at the same time we are looking, so that is a cross-sectional study, a snapshot study, we may say. So this is very important to understand fast, and then we have to look which we need to read for which type of study. So for all practical purpose, for observational study, we should go through this guideline made up by ICMR. But for experimental study, clinical trial, we should follow New Drug Clinical Trial Rule 2019. So this we need to be very clear. Yes, for academic clinical trial, we also need to go through this ICMR guideline, but in ICMR guideline, they had referred for clinical trial this NDCTR 2019. So this is very important. When it is clinical trial, we should follow, we should read adequately the New Drug Clinical Trial Rule. And for this observational study, we should have this ICMR guideline. And if as an institution we are conducting ethics committee, we are conducting regulatory clinical trial, we should have a separate ethics committee which should have a robust knowledge on this New Drug Clinical Trial Rule 2019, because regulatory clinical trial must follow this NDCTR 2019. And the same institute for all type of other research, academic clinical trial or any observational study, they should have another separate ethics committee, and for that the ICMR guideline should be used as reference, and the two ethics committee should be registered to appropriate authority. This also need to be clear. So this is a diagram taken from my professor, guide, mentor, Dr. Shantanu Tripathi, who had drawn this algorithm, and during teaching us. So research can be divided into two groups: human health and disease and others. So we are talking about human health and disease research. So it can be a clinical trials for new drugs, and another group is biomedical or health research. In that, non-interventional studies, non-trial, and some clinical trials or interventional studies may happen. For clinical trials of new drugs, that can be a real new drug, and that can be we need to follow that new drug clinical trial rule. And if it is not new drug, if it is an academic trial, then that again comes under the purview of ICMR guideline. So what is clinical trial? Any systematic study of new drug or an investigational new drug in humans to generate data for discovering or verifying its clinical, pharmacological, means pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic effect, or adverse effects, with specific objective of determining its safety, efficacy, or tolerability. Now coming to the second part of our presentation on responsibilities of key stakeholders in clinical trials. First, we should not forget the most important key stakeholder, that is the research participants, the subjects. So we do research for the pupil, and that should be with the pupil. So this with the pupil means the study participants, research participants. Sometimes someone may say on the pupil, but it is not on the pupil. So if we use the on term, then it becomes, the pupil become little bit subordinate. No, pupil are not subordinate. They are the main stakeholder. So we are doing the research for the pupil, and that should be with the pupil. Otherwise, that will be not a clinical research. So this with the pupil term is very important. And we need to give emphasis that the pupil or subject is most important stakeholder in clinical trial. In this diagram, we can appreciate the different stakeholders in clinical trial. When we are talking about clinical trial, it should be initiated by sponsor, and as it is initiated by sponsor need to communicate with regulatory authorities, and after application the regulatory authority will give permission. But before that, sponsor should fix or appoint investigator who will do the clinical research, clinical trial. It is not appointing, but sponsor will see, sponsor will tell that who is going to be investigated, because that information is important for the regulatory authorities also, because regulatory authority will check whether the investigator has adequate capacity to do clinical trial. To get help, sponsor may appoint CRO, that is the contract research organization. They are not contact, they are contract research organization. So R is important because we are talking about research, clinical research. So contract research organization, they are the media or via through which sponsor will communicate with investigator, and investigator will also get help from them. There are SMO, that is also appointed by sponsor. SMO means Site Management Organization, and they also help investigator. Investigator needs subject. So subject, as already we had mentioned, the research participants, the pupil, they are the most important stakeholder. So there is a relation. We can understand how the investigator and subjects are connected. Here is the role of site administration also, because sometimes we forget the role of site administration. Site administration will talk with investigator, and there should be a tripartite agreement between sponsor, site administrator, and investigator to initiate clinical trial. And another important role of site administrator is they are responsible to appoint institutional ethics committee. And there was always a connection between site administration and IRB or IEC, Institutional Review Board or Independent Ethics Committee. Here the independent word is very important also. Now it is Independent Ethics Committee. They are independent of that site administration. There are different compositions of Institutional Ethics Committee or Independent Ethics Committee. Number of institution and extra institutions are there, fixed numbers there. So that is a separate chapter. And the regulatory authority have a direct crosstalk with IRB, IEC, and IEC has, in case of some serious adverse event, the IEC should communicate with regulatory authority, and regulatory authority will tell IEC regarding the compensation related issues also, how much compensation the subject should get when there is a serious adverse event like death. So all the stakeholders we need to understand when we are conducting clinical trial. So sponsor means that can include a person or company or institution or organization. They are responsible for initiation and management of clinical trial. So initiating and managing a clinical trial, that is the responsibility of sponsors. So they develop protocol and related documents. They select the facility, staff, infrastructure, particularly in reference to specificities of the protocol. That is very important. They engage CRO if required, not always required, but sometimes if required, they will engage. Selecting, appointing, and training the investigators, informing about the rules in general and the protocol in particular. They are responsible for regulatory submission. In case of investigational new drug application, they are responsible. They will coordinate with IEC submission and notification. Then site initiation, IP management. The investigational product management is very important, very critical to develop formulation, manufacture, dispatch to site, accountability, and disposal policy. So I am just giving one example. If I am doing one clinical trial with doxycycline, maybe for some specific indication, new indication, and that doxycycline was dispatched to the site where the clinical trial is ongoing. If I think some of my departmental members needs doxycycline, and I am giving that particular doxycycline to the site my departmental person, so that is a totally illegal. That doxycycline cannot be given to anyone. That is for only clinical trial purpose. So this is why IP management is very important. We should be accountable, and there should be a proper disposal policy. In case of protocol amendments, there should be a clear communication quality assurance, quality control. These are the most important part, and for that, the sponsor may appoint monitors. There should be proper inspections, handling the breaches of GCP and protocol carefully. Then the question of risk management, and for that, selection of subject, designing study, engaging data safety monitoring board, compensation, indemnity, insurance, everything will come. And that should be properly taken care by sponsor. And finally, drafting and signing of the clinical trial agreement, that is also very important responsibility. They may establish an independent data monitoring committee to assess progress of the study, specifically the safety data and some critically efficacy endpoints. Arrangement of monitor, who are the communication link between sponsor and investigator. They are medical experts hired by sponsors, oversee the study progress, specifically the GCP compliance and data handling. Sponsor will arrange for audit. They are responsible for compensation. Premature termination informs if there is any premature termination, they should inform investigator well ahead. Also ethics committee and regulator. So regarding audit, the purpose of sponsors audit is to evaluate the trial that has been conducted, to see the compliance with the protocol, SOPs, good clinical practice guideline of India, and regulatory requirements. In case of multinational study, also ICH GCP. So what is the difference between monitoring and auditing? Monitoring means it is a part of the study conduct, but auditing will be done by an independent third party. So purpose of monitoring is to ensure compliance, oversee the compliance, but auditing is to verify it, verify the compliance. Monitoring can be done during the study and it is an ongoing process, but auditing will be done at one point of time. It is a snapshot like thing. It is the responsibility for the study team to help them monitoring done, but auditing means they are assuring the quality, the QA, quality assurance. For monitoring, filling the checklist can be done by the monitor sometimes, but they will tell, okay, now you fill this checklist, whether anything is missed or not, please check. But auditing means they will verify whether that checklist was filled or not. So QA QC is very important. The purpose of the quality assurance is not to ensure that data are 100% error free. That is impossible. But its purpose is to ensure that the clinical trial results are reliable. That means observed treatment effects are real and their estimated magnitude is unbiased. So quality control helps to identify abnormalities and inconsistencies, but quality assurance helps to prevent abnormalities and inconsistencies. So quality control is a verification process, whereas the quality assurance is a preventive process. Quality control verify, quality assurance prevent. So it is the responsibility of a scientist or investigator, quality control. But quality assurance is the responsibility of overall management of clinical trial. Quality control will not perform that quality assurance activity, but quality assurance will also perform the quality control process. So to validate the system, sometimes it was called quality assurance over quality control. This is Data Safety Monitoring Board's responsibility. In certain trials like phase 1 study, where the risk for the population participants, research participant is very high, this is a regulatory mandate to have Data Safety Monitoring Board. Retaining the independence and autonomy of the board, though it is engaged by the sponsor, but DSMB can only recommend to sponsor. So again, this is one type of guideline like things. They can recommend, yes, you can do this. So it is the sponsor responsibility to follow or not, to follow DSMB's recommendation. But generally what happened, they follow the DSMB's recommendation. They sometimes invite specific domain expert in the meetings as needed. Critically, they evaluate the rationale of the first dose and the design proposed for dosing. Holding frequent or periodic meetings to assess the rationale for continuing or stopping a study. Interim analysis is very important, and for that Data Safety Monitoring Boards has responsibility. Now coming to the investigators' responsibility, they are the leader. They lead the principal investigator, lead the investigating team at the study site, but there are lots of other members in that particular study. That may be co-investigator, sub-investigator, and other research assistants. So they should follow the protocol. They should well know, they should know detailed about that molecule, the investigation product. They should have a proper knowledge on that investigational brochure, specifically its safety profile, and they are responsible for ethics submission, communications to the ethics committee, responsible for ensuring safety and well-being of the research participants, SAE reporting, management of SAE. So these are the responsibility of investigators. Also, they should ensure the facility is appropriately equipped, including emergency management and resuscitation. I am doing one vaccine trial in my center, then in my center, there should be adequate facility to manage type 1 hypersensitivity anaphylaxis. There should not be any lag to send patient from my center to ICCU, critical care setting. An initial treatment that should be followed for managing anaphylaxis should be there at the place of vaccination. So ensuring that all members in the study teams possess the necessary insights and skills, understand the study rationale and the design proposed. They should control access to and use of IP. So IP accountability is the responsibility of the investigator, and very important is documentation, record keeping, archiving. Even after finishing clinical trial, there should be the proper archiving for at least 5 years of the documents. So ensuring access of regulatory and IEC personnel to the facility and to the data, that is again important. We as investigator, they should ensure this access. There is one terminology known as sponsor investigator. That means they are both the sponsor and the investigator. They are playing the dual role. Sponsor does not mean they have to always give money. There may be some external funding agencies who will help this sponsor investigator. But sponsor investigator actually initiate and conduct investigations together, and the person under whose immediate direction an investigational drug or intervention is administered or dispensed or overseen. So sponsor investigator is an individual. It is very important that to note that pharma or device company cannot be a sponsor investigator. So here is few line. You have to match those line with whether it is a sponsor or investigators. So S or I. So can only be an individual person, sponsor or investigator, collaborates with consultants when designing study protocols, whether it is S or I, who is conducting the clinical trial, S or I. S for means sponsors, I means investigator, maintains ultimate responsibility for the implementation of the trial if it is S or I. So in your chat box, you can write S or I like that with each statement. Responsible for the quality and integrity of the research. Who is responsible? Sponsor or investigator? You have to write. So I am just showing the results. So I think you have already done. So this is the result. So it is the investigator who can only be an individual person. Sponsor is something known as organization. So collaborating with consultants when designing study protocols, both sponsors and investigator can do that. Who is conducting the clinical trial? It is the investigator. Who is maintaining the ultimate responsibility for the implementation of the trial? That is investigator. But who is responsible for the quality and integrity of the research? That is the sponsors. The final responsibility is for sponsors. Again, please write down the name. That means who is the person or organization hired by sponsor to perform some of the sponsor's trial related duties. Who is that person or organization? Question 2. Who is the medical experts hired by sponsors to oversee the study progress, GCP compliance, and data handling? Who is that medical expert? And third question is little interesting. Who must provide insurance or legal coverage for investigator malpractice or negligence? Mind it, investigators malpractice or negligence. Who must provide that insurance or legal coverage for that? So question 1, yes, the answer is contract research organization that is hired by sponsor to perform some of the sponsor's trial related duties. Question number 2, the answer is medical monitors. So they are the experts hired by sponsors to oversee the study progress, GCP compliance, and data handling. Now the third question, who will take care of that insurance or legal coverage for investigators malpractice or negligence? Is it sponsor? No, it is the sole responsibility of the investigator. So now a gastroenterologist had been asked to participate in a trial of a new monoclonal antibody treatment for ulcerative colitis. One of the endpoints of the trial is mucosal healing. A sigmoidoscopy is performed at screening and then after 12 weeks of study medication. If there is improvement, the patient continues in the trial. The patient has returned for the 12-week follow-up and sigmoidoscopy will be done, and what happened? The recording equipment fails. So gastro did the sigmoidoscopy and the things were better as per his clinical judgment, and the patient was also begging to stay in the trial. Now gastro score the endoscopic findings are being slightly better so that the patient had chance to stay in the trial and took some pictures. Due to technology failure, they did not have video documentation of that sigmoidoscopy, but of course had pictures. Now the question is, should the patient remain in the trial? What are your responsibilities to GCP in this trial? What is the sponsor's responsibility? And what is the responsibility of the CRO, Contract Research Organization? So data quality and integrity, this is one of the most important principles of GCP that was threatened here. So in this case, the failure of the equipment is leading to problems with reporting and interpretation and also the verification of the results. So gastroenterologists want there to be an improvement so that patient can remain in the trial. So therefore they place the bias into the decision making. So this is very important. Apart from that, the quality control and quality assurance issue, the critical technology for which there should be a consistent quality checks, and that is not done. Because if it was done, that can prevent this type of failure. And there must be systems in place to deal with this type of technology failure. And this is the responsibility of both the sponsor and CRO. Now coming to another perspective, regulators' responsibility. We all know the Kefauver-Harris Amendment and the thalidomide disaster, which not entered or we can say not devastated American people, because there was a lady regulator there in the FDA who had prevented the entry of thalidomide in American market, USA market. So though there were lots of incidents of phocomelia worldwide, the America had not suffered because of that lady regulator. So regulators had a huge responsibility. So prompt expert review of IND application along with all relevant submissions. Next, advanced regulatory inspection of the facility, checking the eligibility, competence of the PI and investigator team, site SOPs. So holding dialogues, meetings with sponsors in order to optimize the protocol. So I am doing one study with monoclonal antibodies for Crohn's disease, and now my sponsor selects some investigator who is not a gastroenterologist, who may be a neurologist. So it is the regulator's responsibility again to tell the sponsor to select the proper investigator. So holding dialogues or meetings with the sponsors in order to optimize the protocol, because in USA there are new techniques to fasten the clinical trial to get new drugs quickly, like fast track designation. So this also we need to incorporate in our country. It is regulators' responsibility to ensure subject safety, SAE management, payment of compensation for injury or death, communication. The decision should be communicated early. Now, what is the responsibility of IEC? Their special insight and skills of the members of that particular committee in reviewing such study that is ongoing. It is very important. understanding the regulatory mandates and ethical obligations specific to specific phase of trial. We need to be very cautious while I am in the IEC and we had given a permission to phase 1 clinical trial. So it is very important. And sometimes we need to invite a domain expert in the meeting. Critically evaluate the rationale and the design proposed. So it is not only to see the morality of the clinical research. Ethics means both the morality and materialism. So bad science is also a bad ethics. So we need to see the scientific portion of the study too. This is also a very important responsibility. Though there are some centers, some institutes which have a scientific committee, separate scientific committee for clinical research evaluation, but institutional ethics committee has the final comment on the scientific part of the clinical research. So there should be a continuous ethical oversight and monitoring. They should communicate with investigator and also the data safety monitoring board and also the regulator as necessary. Appreciating vulnerability of the subject is very important, as we had also discussed regarding the COVID-19. COVID-19 infected persons are more vulnerable, specifically when early 2020s, there was lots of social stigmatization, and that is the time when IEC should act very cautiously. Sometimes we need for audiovisual recording in specific type of clinical research, and that should be recommended as per the IECs. So IEC will decide whether the audiovisual recording is required or not. So this is the last slide. This is a question answer. So who are the key stakeholders in conduct of clinical trial? So for every question, there is one option. You can select from the options. So here the question is in conduct of pre-marketing trials. So that means the regulatory trials. Who is responsible for, number one, deciding entitlement for compensation for trial related injury or death? Who is responsible for this compensation for trial related injury or death? So it is regulator. Option is D. So for all practical purpose, for all regulatory clinical trials, we need to follow the new drug clinical trial rule to 2019. And in case of that regulatory trial related injury or death, after establishing the causality, the regulator will decide for entitlement of the compensation, and they will tell the IEC, and IEC will tell the investigator, and finally the sponsor will give or compensate that amount which was told by regulators. In case of academic clinical trials, still it is in a gray zone, because till date, whatever document we have, ideally IEC should, that institutional ethics committee should decide regarding this compensation. But again, that is a gray zone. So in this question, as it is a pre-marketing trial, so who will decide the compensation? That is the regulator. Number two, the access controlled record keeping of documents at site during the trial. So who has the access controlled record keeping of documents at the site during the trial? Yes, it is the role of investigator. They should have the record keeping procedures, and also they should if there is any IEC member, or if the IEC want to access those record, or regulators want to access those record, the investigator should provide that access, because that is again a very important. Who will take the responsibility to have that informed consent process? It is the investigator responsibility. The data management, again, it is an investigator responsibility. Registering the study with clinical trial registry, again, it is the responsibility of the investigator, but yes, sponsor can help. Planning and implementing the quality control and quality assurance, including audit, that is a role of sponsor. Who will constitute the ethics committee and the appointment of its members? That is the responsibility of site administration. Who will responsible for IP storage, administration, and accountability? It is again investigator accountability. Obtaining regulatory permission for the conduct of clinical trial, it is the responsibility of obviously the sponsor. So they will do the necessary paper submissions. Recording all the pertinent data in the CRF, that is again the responsibility of the investigator. So with that, I just want to say that while we are talking about ethics in clinical research, it is just like a personalized medicine concept, precision medicine concept. So each patient is different, and each patient may have different context. So we have to use our heart. It is not here, though it is in here, that is in brain. So our conscious righteousness to see whether we are doing some ethical job or not. Yes, it is a complex procedure. We have different guidelines, rules, regulations to help us during this procedure. But I just want to mention one important line, that if we follow this line, that is, do unto others what you would like others to do unto you. This is one of the things, if we can follow. If as an investigator, I am sitting in the chair of research participant and want to see whether how I am doing, whether I can applying the same to me also, just like a research participant, then I think the ethical screening will be done. And for that, this was way back, maybe 5,000, 6,000 years back, in Upanishad it was written that Atmanah Pratikulani Parishuna Samacharet. So I think this is one line, if we can follow in our clinical research, then there should not be any dilemma regarding ethics. So we can have ethical clinical research. So no clinical research will be done without ethics. So ethics is an integral part of all clinical research. If it is not ethical, then it is not a right clinical research. So with that, I want to thank you all, and thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you.